everybody. How are you? I'm a little bit late because I was creating a sale coupon for you because it's Mother's Day. Mother's Day is this Sunday, May 9th. Welcome to Mantra Monday. And I know that my mother is on my mind because this is the month of May that she actually crossed over in 2014, May 25th of 2014. So it's been 7 years. And let me tell you, it doesn't feel like 7 years. Well, in some ways it seems forever, and in some ways it doesn't seem forever. So part of the mystery of life, of being a eternal being in a temporary material body, and having this strange relationship with time, right? So you'll notice in the chat this morning that I put in the code for the sale for the hot sauce, and that's going to be use code Hot Mama. Okay, so that being said, I should probably supply you with the actual website where you can go and put in this code. So let me do that. Today, while I'm doing that, today we are finally doing the last verse, verse 55 of the universal form. So that's chapter 11. And yeah, let me see what else I can tell you. I've got some other cool announcements that are coming up for this week. We are going to be doing a dance-off, a Mother's Day dance-off on my Instagram. So that is, so we get together. You guys seem to enjoy it. I've gotten a lot of really nice messages from people that are a little camera shy, that are lurkers, that I guess dance privately. I've got my private dancers, and then also you extroverts that like to come on camera with me. And so that's going to be happening this Saturday, May 8th at 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So for my East Coast peeps, that's going to be 9:30 to 10:30. And I'm live streaming that on Instagram, and we're going to be doing some select cuts from my catalog. So this time I think I'm going to hook up Bluetooth and try and broadcast the music in a better way on my side, since it's just being shown that people are kind of seem to be having a hard time, hooking up with the music on their end and all these devices and this and that. So that's what we're going to do. So as always, how we conduct Mantra Monday around here is I read the verse in Sanskrit, and then I do the word-for-word translation, and then I read the synonyms, and then we get into the purport. So this is going to be kind of like a recap of a lot of what has been said before. Of course, last week was like that as well. Last week was a particularly long purport. This one is pretty long as well. All right, so let's get into it. The next chapter, by the way, is entitled Devotional Service. Here we go. Mat-karma-kṛn mat-paramo, mad-bhaktaḥ saṅga-varjitaḥ, nirvairaḥ sarva-bhūteṣu, yasamam iti Pāṇḍava. If you'd like to follow along, you'll notice that I have put the Sanskrit for you, and the translation and the purport in the description. Once again, mat-karma-kṛn mat-paramo, mad-bhaktaḥ saṅga-varjitaḥ, nirvairaḥ sarva-bhūteṣu, yasamam eti Pāṇḍava. mat-karma-kṛn mat-paramaḥ mad-bhaktaḥ saṅga-varjitaḥ nirvairaḥ sarva-bhūteṣu yasamam eti Pāṇḍava. mat-karma-kṛn mat-paramo mad-bhaktaḥ saṅga-varjitaḥ nirvairaḥ sarva-bhūteṣu yasamam eti Pāṇḍava. So the word for word translation is mat-karma-kṛt, engaged in doing my work, mat-paramaḥ, considering me the supreme, mad-bhaktaḥ, engaged in my devotional service, saṅga-varjitaḥ, freed from the contamination of fruitive activities and mental speculation, nirvairaḥ, without an enemy, sarva-bhūteṣu, among all living entities, yaha, one who, saha, he, mam, unto me, eti, comes, Pāṇḍava, O son of Pāṇḍu. This is a beautiful verse. This is the ultimate qualifications encapsulated very nicely to be able to associate face to face with God. Translation, Krishna says, my dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contamination of fruitive activities and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living being, he certainly comes to me. So we have to be peaceful. We have to be peaceful. And that means that we have no enemies. But what does that mean? That means that we are actually a friend to every living entity. That means that we have become completely nonviolent. And to become completely nonviolent, that means that we're always trying to remind others of what their relationship is with the supreme absolute truth. That manifests itself again in the way that we eat, in the way that we speak, right? Do no harm. We are eating nice foodstuffs in the mode of goodness, and we are offering those foodstuffs to the Lord. So they become spiritually surcharged, spiritually powerful. This way, our entire body is becoming spiritualized. Also, those fruits and vegetables and grains and beans and legumes that we are offering to the Lord, they actually can become liberated, or at least come to the human platform of life. Because remember, there is a soul inside of everything. We are not engaged in animal slaughter, right? We're not engaged in illicit activities, gambling, and so forth. Uh, we are not antagonistic in our relationships. Someone may be antagonistic to us, but we are not antagonistic to them. We're always taking shelter of the Lord, and we're letting the Lord work these things out. Of course, if one is a kshatriya like Arjuna, and one's duty is to engage in battle, then that is another matter. But in general, the people in general are not kshatriyas, right? The people in general, we follow into the categories of worker bee. We fall into the category of um, conducting business, right? Mercantile class, farming class, or we may be pursuing intellectual activities, right? We may be counseling others and engaged in study and teaching others. It is said that the six Goswamis were so gentle that even rogues and thieves had affection towards them. So we want to develop the qualities of a saintly person, of a gentle person. These are ultimately the qualities of God. God ultimately is sweet and gentle. Of course, he's not a pushover, but he doesn't have to be a pushover. So let me get into the rest of this, but I'm going to continue to share my thoughts because they're just flowing to me. So, we all have goals in life. We all have somewhere where we want to be, things that we want to do, things that we want to achieve. But when one finally, comes to bhakti yoga, you have exhausted, all the other possibilities, right? It doesn't mean that you don't have personal desires. It doesn't mean that you don't have goals, right? But it just means that you have learned how to dedicate what you're doing as a meditation, as a holistic meditation to Bhagavan, right? And in that way, there's no karma that is generated, right? You are dovetailing everything that you want to do in his service, right? Everything that you do, everything that you give in charity, right? Every austerity that you perform ultimately is a meditation. And in this way, we become satisfied and we become purified, and our actions are beneficial not only to ourselves but to everyone else that we come in contact with. So it is said that, a devotee, a bhakta, it may appear on the surface that he is conducting mundane activities, that he's doing, just sort of what everyone else is doing. But actually, he's not, because there is a difference in the intention. There is a difference in the focus of the work that a bhakta is performing. Okay, so now I'm going to read Prabhupada's purport, but I'm going to take a little sip of water. Okay. Anyone who wants to approach the supreme of all the personalities of Godhead on the Krishna Loka planet in the spiritual sky and be intimately connected with the supreme personality, Krishna, must take this formula as stated by the Supreme himself. So these are direct instructions. Therefore, this verse is considered to be the essence of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is a book directed to the conditioned souls who are engaged in the material world with the purpose of lording it over nature and who do not know of the real spiritual life. The Bhagavad Gita is meant to show how one can understand his spiritual existence and his eternal relationship with the supreme spiritual personality, and to teach one how to go back home, back to Godhead. Now, here in this verse, which clearly explains the process by which one can attain success in his spiritual activity, devotional service. As far as work is concerned, one should transfer his energy entirely to Krishna conscious activities, as stated in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or the Nectar of Devotion. Of course, this is a gradual process. This is not something that you can fake. This is not something that you should try and do artificially. This is not something that you should do for show. This is something that can take an entire lifetime, or can take many lifetimes to do. I just want to say that. It's important, very important. Anashaktasya vishayan gitarham upayu najataha nirbandaha Krishna sambande yuktam vairagyam uchate. No work should be done by any man except in relationship to Krishna. This is called Krishna karma, right? So what I was saying earlier about karma, when you engage in bhakti yoga and devotional service under the guidance of a self-realized soul, like these books were written by a self-realized soul, these commentaries, it is like literally unplugging the fan of karma. You're unplugging it. You're not creating any more karma. This is a scientific process. One may be engaged in various activities, but one should not be attached to the result of his work. So now we're talking about attitude. Results should be done only for him. For example, one may be engaged in business, but to transform that activity into Krishna consciousness, one has to do business for Krishna. If Krishna is the proprietor of the business, then Krishna should enjoy the profit of the business. If a businessman is in possession of thousands and thousands of dollars, and if he has to offer all of this to Krishna, he can do it. This is work for Krishna. Instead of constructing a big building for his sense gratification, he can construct a nice temple for Krishna, and he can install the deity of Krishna and arrange for the deity's service as outlined in the authorized books of devotional service. This is all Krishna karma. Or, there's a temple that's already existing, right? You can tithe and you can give to that temple. You can help those things go on. So I think this is a really, really interesting thought process and point, because it means that you're letting go of control and you're really doing things with your heart. You're really doing things with your in a devotional mood. And in fact, if you are doing it this way, then you're doing what you would normally do better and better and better and better, because everything that you're doing is actually imbued with love, right? So again, he's giving the example of a businessman, right? You have a big business and you have employees, right? So instead of just trying to lord it over your employees and all of that, you're going to start to see your employees as parts and parcels of Krishna, and you're going to start to think of their welfare and their benefit, right? Are they eating nicely? Are they being treated properly? So all these things uh, humanizes everything that we do. More love and care and concern, because you are putting God in the center of your activity instead of putting your own false ego and your own lust in the center of everything that you do. Okay, one should not be attached to the result of his work, but the result should be offered to Krishna, and one should accept as prasadam. Prasadam means mercy. The remnants of offerings to Krishna. That means, like I said, you're offering your foodstuffs to Krishna, right? They're becoming spiritualized and prophylactic in that way. The kinds of foods that we eat and the way that we eat it is extremely, extremely important, because consciousness is imbued in that food. If one constructs a very big building for Krishna and installs the deity of Krishna, one is not prohibited from living there, but it is understood that the proprietor of the building is Krishna. That is called Krishna consciousness. If, however, one is not able to construct a temple for Krishna, one can engage himself in cleansing the temple of Krishna. That is also Krishna karma. One can cultivate a garden. Anyone who has land, in India at least, any poor man has a certain amount of land, can utilize for Krishna by growing flowers to offer him. One can sow tulasi plants, because tulasi leaves are important, and Krishna has recommended this in Bhagavad Gita. So tulasi, for those of you who don't know, here in the West, it's called holy basil. Patram pushpam phalam tvayam. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that you can offer him a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or a little water. And if you offer it with love and devotion, he accepts that and he's satisfied by that. This leaf especially refers to the tulasi. So one can sow tulasi and pour water on the plant. Thus, even the poorest man can engage in the service of Krishna. These are some of the examples of how one can engage in working for Krishna. So Krishna's not complicated. He's really not a complicated person. I mean, he's certainly sophisticated, that's for sure, and sublime and intricate, but on the heart level, on the love level, he's very, very straightforward. You offer him some simple thing like this, and he accepts it as long as it's offered with love and devotion. He appreciates that. Talked a little bit about that last week in connection to Radhanath Swami, who on his mother's birthday went out to the garden as a child and picked one of the roses off the bush and came in and gave it to his mother, and his mother was so touched by that. Now, of course, the mother planted the rose bushes. The mother took care of the rose bushes, not him as a child. But it's this feeling of like, oh, this is so beautiful. I want to give it to you, right? So there's a love and an appreciation and a reciprocation there. That's what Krishna's looking for. That's what God is looking for from us. Okay, the word mat-parama refers to one who considers the association of Krishna in his supreme abode to be the highest perfection of life. Such a person does not wish to be elevated to the higher planets, such as the moon or sun, or heavenly planets, or even the highest planet of this universe, Brahmaloka. He has no attraction for that. He is only attracted to being transferred to the spiritual sky. But in the spiritual sky, he is not satisfied with merging into the glowing Brahmajyoti effulgence, for he wants to enter the highest spiritual planet, namely Krishna Loka, Goloka, Vrindavan. Aloka means planet. Go is actually referring to cows. Okay, he has full knowledge of that planet, and therefore he is not interested in any other. As indicated by the word mad-bhaktaḥ, he fully engages in devotional service, specifically in the 9 processes of devotional engagement, which are hearing, chanting, remembering, worshiping, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering prayers, carrying out the orders of the Lord, making friends with him, and surrendering everything to him. One can engage in all 9 devotional processes, or 8 or 7, or at least in one, and that will surely make one perfect. So you see, we're not expected to multitask necessarily in devotional service because everyone's circumstances are different. Maybe it's not possible for you to engage in all 9 processes of devotional service, but you can pick one. What's coming to mind is Prabhupada was pointing out that when they were in India, that there was a woman. Every day she was coming to the temple and she was bringing water. She was carrying a big water pot and she was bringing water for the worship of the deity, right? That's all she could do. But every day she came and brought that water. That was her service. And Prabhupada said, just for that, she's going to go back to Godhead. So it could be something very, very simple. So here, again, one can engage in all 9 devotional processes, or in 8, or in 7, or at least in one, and that will surely make one perfect. Just like we're doing here every Monday, we're doing Shravanam Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, right? We are chanting, right? We are hearing, we are remembering, and we are talking about Vishnu. We're actually engaged in 3 processes of devotional service here every Monday. And that can actually bring us to a state of perfection. The term saṅga-varjitaḥ is very significant. One should disassociate himself from persons who are against Krishna. Not only are the atheistic persons against Krishna, but so are those who are attracted to fruitive activities and mental speculation. Therefore, the pure form of devotional service is described in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu as follows. Anya bilashita sunyam jnana karmadi anavritam anukulyena krishnanu shiranam bhaktir uttama. In this verse, Srila Rupa Goswami clearly states that if anyone wants to execute unalloyed devotional service, he must be freed from all kinds of material contamination. He must be freed from the association of persons who are addicted to fruitive activities and mental speculation. When freed from such unwanted association and from the contamination of material desires, one favorably cultivates knowledge of Krishna, and that is called pure devotional service. Anukulayasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam from the Hari Bhakti Vilas. One should think of Krishna and act favorably for Krishna, not unfavorably. So, in other words, this is not like a condemnation of other people, because everyone's at where they're at. But just like if you really want to make progress in something, you focus on that. And the best way to focus on that is to, create certain boundaries for yourself, right? Because we become like what we associate with. So that's what this is saying. And mental speculation, right? And fruitive activities. I mean, what are we trying to get away from? We're trying to get away from this desire, this greed that we have to lord it over material nature. Why? Because that entangles us in fruitive reactions, karma, that plunges us into the cycle of birth and death, right? Around and around and around and around and around we go, right? We want to detach from that, right? Doesn't mean that we can't have positive interactions with other people. Doesn't mean we can't love them, right? But it means that we have to safeguard our garden of devotional service. The cultivation of the Bhakti Lata Bij, it's like planting a seed. Then it has to be cultivated and it has to be watered. And the watering is the chanting and the hearing, right? And then also taking time to pull out any weeds, any anartas, any unwanted things that may spring up beside the Bhakti Lata Bij that may resemble it, but that is not it. And so that takes a certain amount of, introspection and care. So that's what that means. And then this mental speculation, right? I mean, just listen to any conversation, really, online, and people are offering their opinions, right? Without really having full knowledge on a topic. People are very quick to offer their opinions. Opinions are not going to get you back home, right? Well, in my opinion, the way you get to uh, Del Mar is that you should go north, and then you should go east, and then you should go north again. That is my opinion. Well, your opinion is not actually grounded in fact, right? If you do that, you're going to end up in Vista. You're not going to end up in Del Mar. So there is an acceptance, not a blind acceptance, mind you, but there is eventually an acceptance that knowledge from the spiritual realm is descending, right? It's not ascending. We can only understand so much by our material senses. Our material senses are limited, right? I can't see into the next room with these eyes. I can't hear, what's going on. Like my dog, for example, has got much better hearing than I do, right? His sense of hearing is much more acute. His sense of smell is much more acute. Of course, according to our bodies, our senses are uh, more or less refined, right? Depending on what to do. But ultimately, our senses are limited. And as far as we can go, really, as jnana yogis, is to the Brahma Jyoti. Because again, this goes back to the point that Krishna is not obliged to reveal himself. Krishna is a transcendental personality. It's through the right attitude that he reveals himself. Okay, I hope that provided some clarity. Okay, so one should think of Krishna and act for Krishna favorably, not unfavorably. Kamsa was an enemy of Krishna. From the very beginning of Krishna's birth, Kamsa planned in so many ways to kill him. And because he was always unsuccessful, he was always thinking of Krishna. Thus, while working, while eating, and while sleeping, he was always Krishna conscious in every respect. But that Krishna consciousness was not favorable. And therefore, in spite of his always thinking of Krishna 24 hours a day, he was considered a demon or an asura, and at last Krishna killed him. Of course, anyone who was killed by Krishna attained salvation immediately, but that is not the aim of the pure devotee. The pure devotee does not even want salvation. He does not want to be transferred even to the highest planet, Goloka Vrindavan. His only objective is to serve Krishna wherever he may be. A devotee of Krishna is friendly to everyone. Therefore, it is said here that he has no enemy, nirvairaḥ. How is this? A devotee is situated in Krishna consciousness, knows that only devotional service to Krishna can relieve a person from all the problems of life. He has personal experience of this, and therefore he wants to introduce this system, Krishna consciousness, into human society. There are many examples in history of devotees of the Lord who risked their lives for spreading of God consciousness. The favorite example is Lord Jesus Christ. He was crucified by the non-devotees, but he sacrificed his life for spreading God consciousness. Of course, it would be so superficial to understand that he was killed. Of course, we know that part of Lord Jesus's Leela, right, was that he was showing ultimately through his resurrection that the soul is eternal. Similarly, in India, also there are many examples, such as Thakur Haridas and Prahlad Maharaj. Why such risk? Because they wanted to spread Krishna consciousness, and it is difficult. A Krishna conscious person knows that if a man is suffering, it is due to his forgetfulness of his eternal relationship with Krishna. Therefore, the highest benefit one can render to human society is relieving one's neighbor from all material problems. In such a way, a pure devotee is engaged in the service of the Lord. Now we can imagine how merciful Krishna is to those engaged in his service, risking everything for him. Therefore, it is certain that persons must reach the supreme planet after leaving the body. In summary, the universal form of Krishna, which is temporary, manifestation, and the form of time which devours everything, and even the form of Vishnu, four-handed, have all been exhibited by Krishna. Thus, Krishna is the origin of all these manifestations. It is not that Krishna is a manifestation of the original Vishvarupa or Vishnu. Krishna is the origin of all forms. There are hundreds and thousands of Vishnus, but for a devotee, no form of Krishna is important but the original form, two-handed Shyamasundar. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that those who are attached to the Shyamasundar form of Krishna in love and devotion can see him always within the heart and cannot see anything else. One should understand, therefore, that the purport of this 11th chapter is that the form of Krishna is essential and supreme. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 11th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the universal form. So that concludes this chapter. Wow. We started this, I think back in February, and now it is Monday, May 3rd, and we have come to the conclusion. The next chapter is chapter 12, which is entitled Devotional Service. So there's going to be some more questions and answers there between Arjuna, Prince Arjuna, and Lord Krishna. Okay, so I'm going to tell you that there are some other things coming up. I'm going to be doing a launch for some new music that is going to be launching on the new moon, which is next Tuesday. So that is in 8 days from now. So I'm gonna post a special video on that up here. Also, if you care to support this channel, if you like what I do here, you can donate $1 to paypal.me. Tiny music, it's very appreciated. It helps keep the internet on. If you want to get text alerts about Mantra Monday because you are on the run, right? You can go to, in that in the chat box, tinymusic.com/mantra-mondays. There you go. So I think I've got all the info for you today. We're at 35 minutes. Thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it. My prayers go out to India and everyone that is suffering there, right? And also, thank you very much again for being here. I appreciate you. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And I hope to see you on Saturday on Instagram for my dance off. Let me see if I can post something here. Can I? No, which is kind of lousy. You'd think that I'd be able to post something here. But anyway, if you want to participate in the dance off, then just follow me on Instagram. That is at Akayani_musical_yoga. All right, have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye now.